Alright. Hey, Mars, so you have requested not just scary, but you want horrifying. You want me to give you chills, correct?
Yeah.
Alright. Well, then tell
Yeah.
me, MR, what would you like? Do you want me to make something up? You want something from legend? Another one from my history, maybe? Because I've got definitely things that'll terrify you.
Maybe from your history, like, you seem to have, like, more control over that.
Okay.
And know a bit more about that.
Alright. Then let me tell you a terrifying story of an adventurous, teenage, rebellious phase that broke very quickly based on something me and my idiot friends did together. Now this story, I warn you all in advance, is a little graphic, just a little, and I'll do my best to keep it not for the faint of heart. But this one broke me when I was a teenager. At first I was adventurous, rebellious. I loved going out, especially past curfew with my friends, to go and find out what was out there. We had no fear. We were brave, stupid, and young. And we found something that...
That didn't last long, though.
No, it did not. We found something that, as you can hear from my voice, kind of breaking off a bit, was not something that I like to remember. But for you, MR, I'm going to tell you this story. So, a long time ago, when I was about 14, 15 maybe, we had a curfew, of course.
I was mentally got sewed into your mind and you can never really forget it.
Absolutely, that's what this is. So when I was about 14, 15, MR, me and my friends wanted to go out because we liked exploring. We came from a pretty small town. And with that small town, there was a lot of abandoned places. Places that we like to take over, chat, sit around, maybe relax, talk shit. You know, at the time when we were rebellious, and I don't encourage this in anyone, you know, we would have a smoke or two. Not something you should do, especially as a kid. But at one point, one day, during about winter break, me and my friends, again, breaking curfew, we started to go out. We took a buddy of mine's car, and we go out to downtown. Now, just a little bit on the outskirts of downtown, if you will. I wouldn't really call it the outskirts, but it's, you know, it's away from most population. At around, 1 in the morning, we find this one place that we think is super cool. Now, we found this place, and what it was essentially an abandoned warehouse, kind of like freight train area, if you will. It was near the train tracks, and it was a building where they had a lot of old shit in there. I still don't really know what it was, because I never bothered going back, because, no. But we went in there because we were like, ooh, abandoned building we haven't searched before. Let's see what treasures await us, you know? Especially because every time we went to an abandoned place, if we found something cool, we would definitely, take a thing or two. A little trophy from our escapades. And when we went there, when we went inside this building.
Scary, dude.
Thank you, Lizard. So, as I was saying, when we went in there, first thing that you notice, you open the door, or broke down the boards, if you will, and opened the door, was a smell. There's a smell in this building it didn't seem right. It was old, it was rotting, something just smelled wrong. And the minute I walked in there, I was already getting... You ever get that instinctive urge to just run away to something? Just something doesn't feel right and you gotta get out? I had that, but of course I was a teenager with the boys, and I didn't want to look like a coward. But I could tell a lot of the other boys, too, were the same way. They were like, something doesn't feel right. But nobody was going to be that guy, all right? Nobody was going to be the guy that chickened out, especially not as a teenager. You just don't do that. And so we went in further. We wanted to see what treasures were here. So we found some boxes. We broke them open. It was a lot of old stuff. We didn't really know what to do with it. Like pieces of machinery, boxes of rotting whatever it used to be. Because this had been abandoned for years, maybe decades. Who knows how long. That town was pretty old. And as we were going through it all, we found something deeper inside the building. It looked like somebody had been living there, though not recently. There was some bedding on the ground. There was an old lamp. Some thrown around food cans and everything. And we were like, yes, another place where the homeless once lived. We had seen it before in other abandoned buildings that we'd been to. It was like, okay, we know how to handle this. There's more of us, and if we run away, there's nothing to fear. What are they gonna do? Chase us? They never did before. That's another story entirely. But As we're looking through, picking through some of the old cans and boxes, trying to see, hey, you know, did anybody leave something here? Because you'd be surprised what you can scavenge up if you poke through the right areas, you know? So we were like, ooh, interesting treasure. There was nothing really here. You know, we found like a couple quarters, maybe a penny or two. So one dude found a plastic ring. It looked like it was from one of those ring pop things, you know? We were like, okay, so nothing really here. So we're going further in. And the further we're going into this building, because it's a big building, it even has a basement, you know? The more we're going in, the more that feeling is just making me shake, you know? Like, I don't know if you can see my hand shaking a little bit right now with the VR thing, but the feeling is just...
bit. It's like vibrating.
Oh, shit. Hold up.
My heart is pounding.
Okay, so, as we're going further in, that feeling is just... It's scaring me. It's starting to make me really worried, because it's like, alright, something's not wrong. I don't feel good. Like, there's a knot in my stomach. Something is telling Monkey Brain, get the fuck out. But of course, again, teenage pride, I'm not gonna be that guy. I am staying here until someone else cracks first. And unfortunately, the rest of my friends are also like that. Stay here until someone else cracks first. So we're still going, picking through. We find more areas where people had lived. And then we get to one box. And as we get to one box, we find that it's like one of those big shipping containers, right? And it's opened, like just slightly, and we're like, ooh, something in here. As we open it, the smell is just... The smell is indescribable.
The aroma.
Yeah, the aroma is indescribable. It's horrifying, it's disgusting, and we're like, what the fuck is that? And we see a bunch of boxes in here. And one dude goes in. Now, I didn't see this with my own eyes, but one dude goes in, and as he goes in, all we hear is, bro, what the fuck? And I'm like, what is it? And then he comes back out, and he's like, yo, fuck, there's a dead guy in there. And we're like, dude, stop. And one of my other buddies goes in there, and he says the same thing. And he kind of like kicks it, and I saw a boot, like a foot, if you will. And I was like, oh, no, fuck that, no. So we leave the shipping container. Why we did not leave at that point, I will never know. Because we stayed. We stayed because we wanted to see a bit more. And as we're going around, we're like, dude, this is it. We're going to be the coolest people ever. We're going to tell this fucking story. It's going to be great. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel too good. They're like, dude, are you going to chicken out? I'm like, no. And you could tell other people, because other people were like, dude, are you going to like chicken out or something? I'm like, no, I'm still here. So we're there, picking through a few more boxes.
Do not want to get traumatized.
Exactly. So we're like picking through a few more boxes, and we're like, all right, some old stuff. You know, one dude picks some metal up because it looks like a little hook, and he's like, ooh, I want to keep this. This is my trophy. Slips it into his pocket or whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool. Can we, like, leave now? Like, that's it. Like, I'm starting to break. I don't like it anymore. And they're like, no, dude. Like, come on. Just, like, a few more minutes. I'm like, I don't want to be here a few more minutes. And they're like, few more minutes. Like, there's one more area we haven't checked out. That little overseer's office or whatever that's, like, on the second floor. And we're like, okay, fine. We'll check it out. We go up there. We open it. And as we go in there, there's a lamp in there that's still on. It's dim, you know, but it's been on. It's very dim in one of the corners. And we see some guy sleeping there. Like, he hasn't moved at all. And we're like you could see his shoulders slowly going up. And we see all these, like, empty bottles and shit around him and everything. And we're like, oh, fuck. Dude, there's somebody here. And some guy was like, yo, you dare me to, like, kick him or whatever? And we're like, no, fuck it. Let's just go. Let's just get the fuck out of here. Like, and so we slowly start walking out. And as we're, like, walking out, like, out of a fucking movie, and this still makes me, like, shake all over a bit. Like, out of a fucking movie, as we're getting down, one dude going down the steps slips and grabs a rail, and it just echoes through the building. And as soon as that echo everywhere shakes out all over, all you hear is, who the fuck is there? And we're like, shit. So we start fucking going. And we start hearing this rabbit. Like, we hear all this screaming. It sounds like this dude is crazy out of his mind. We keep going and going, and we separate. Everybody.
Rabies or something.
Yeah, sounds like he has rabies. We book it, we spread out, we leave. Like, I stick with one of my buddies, and we get out like that, you know, like, out immediately out of one of the emergency exits they have for, like, fires and shit. We get out of there, and shit starts blaring all over, and we hear that screaming continue like crazy. And we're like, all right, out, out, out. Me and my buddy make it back to the car, and we wait for like a few minutes, and the other guys finally show up. You know, it takes them like a minute or two, and we're like, dude, get in there. And the last guy to get in, you know, as soon as he gets in, he's like, drive, get the fuck out of here. And we look over, and as my buddy is like, you know, he's turned on the car and he's already driving away. We look back and we see this dude step out, and he's got like a machete, you know, like he's missing his left fucking arm. He's got a stump, right? He's holding a machete in his right hand. He's got no shirt on and everything. Like, he's tatted up, and he's just like waving it around and everything. Like, he's got a beard, like the long ass hair and everything. He looks crazy. And as we get away, you know, we call the police and everything because Jesus Christ, you know, holy shit. We call the police and everything. One of my buddies does. And the next day, because we had a system where I came from where if you wanted, the cops would call you back and tell you what exactly happened. And we were like, no, don't call back. Just pretend we never existed. 3 days later on the news, the next story that finally came up was that area we were in with an anonymous police call where they found a guy, right? They found some homeless guy there, and they found 6 bodies on the premise and an untold amount of more. There was this crazy fucking guy just in there for who knows how long. They said he had been living there for a long time, apparently. And he's arrested, you know, he's got life in prison or whatever, or something. I don't know what happened to him. But I was like, oh my god, my heart, I don't want to go out anymore. I've never gone out exploring since then. I don't do abandoned locations anymore. Not after that. Like, some of my buddies still do. Like, even today, they do like modern exploration, if you will. But I was like, no, that's it. I'm done. Thanks for playing. You know, player 2 is out. Pull the plug. I'm done. And MR, I hope you enjoyed that story.
That was fucking great, dude.
I can see your hand, right hand right there.
Alright, so, gathering your attention here, I have been requested by Lizard to send a bit of a fantastical story. Fantasy or sci-fi, but even though I love sci-fi, personally myself, sci-fi is my favorite. Fantasy has always had a very lovely place in my heart, so I would love to tell you all a bit of a fantasy story. I think, perhaps that one. No, what'll be a good one? You know what? I know the perfect one. I'm going to tell you all the story of Cherub and the Unyielding Flame. Now, this story takes place in a world that unfortunately held no light. A darkness had settled all over, and what inhabitants were left huddled around what few fires they could make, what little light they could get for themselves, in order to stave off the shadows, the end, and the void. Now, there once lived an individual, a woman by the name of Cherub, alone in this world of darkness, of cold and void. She did her best to survive day by day, hoping that maybe one day the light would return. And as she held her ground, surviving day by day, bit by bit, Cherub eventually, on one of her many adventures, stumbled upon something. For see, even though the fires were limited to what few could make them, she eventually found a branch. A white branch that burned greatly. This branch held no fire, but it burned brightly with a beautiful light. A beautiful, unending light. And as she grabbed this branch and held it high, it glowed even brighter. Never before had she been able to see so far with the light that this branch had given off. It was so precious, but it was nowhere near a tree. She wondered what creation could give such light to the world. And as she searched for hours, for days, for weeks, she carried this branch with her everywhere she went. And then she learned that this branch glowed so brightly that the first tree she had finally been able to stumble upon that just clung to life ever so slightly. It clung with desperation, with endurance, and with a desire to live. This branch, when she laid it close to this tree, lit up beautifully in the night. It was for but a brief moment, but when it lit up, The darkness was pushed back so far, so great,
Camera.
that she could see for as far as the eye could take it until the shadows consumed it once more. She knew then that this branch was special, a light in the darkness. And as she carried it with her where she went, she knew what she had to do. For in this darkness that consumed the world, there must be, if people could still make fire, there must be a great forest that clung to life. Something out there that could once again burn brightly, without flame, with life. Cherub packed what she could as she returned home, and decided that this journey would be hers to take. She marched on. She marched north. She marched east. She marched west, and she marched south. Always looking for wherever held just a spark of life, just an inkling that gripped tightly onto the world. It took many days, it took many weeks, and it took many desperate people that she had stumbled upon and learned the stories of. It took so many hardships, such dedication. There had been many that wanted to steal this branch for themselves. There had been many that told her that they would buy it, that they would give her a world that she could call her own, a little paradise of endless resources if she had only given them the branch. But Cherub said no. This branch would be the hope of a people lost to the void. And still she carried it. There were no companions. There were no friends. In this world of darkness, it was everyone for themselves. And so people stood against her. They wanted it for their own selfish desires. And so continuously they tried to take the branch. Day in and day out, it was a struggle. But Cherub continued to march through and through with hope. With hope that... Excuse me while I turn down that volume real quick. Just gonna kind of mute that. Anyways, as I was saying, Cherub marched day in and day out, knowing that one day this branch would bring life once more. And she continued through the hardships. She continued through the mire and the muck. And eventually, as her supplies ran low, as her hope dwindled, and as the void, the shadows that had taken so many, slowly grasped around her heart, she was ready to give up. For what use was this burden? Even if she could see so far, the dangers still lurked in what shadows remained. She finally stumbled upon something. A tree. A tree so great and massive, beautifully tall. So tall was this tree that as she held the branch up, she still could not see its peak. It was like a mountain that gripped into the earth and survived, endured, with leaves so beautifully green and bark so bountifully brown, that it still lived. It still pumped life into the world, even as the dark consumed it, of a cold sun that gave it no sustenance. The tree did what it could to survive. Cherub thought that this was a great find, but it was still just one tree. And so she continued forward, just a few more feet, just a few more steps. And as she continued, she found another great tree, beating like a heart, and then another, and then another. And as she continued, she found herself in a bountiful wood, a forest untouched by the fires of man's light. And finally, at the very center of these great trees, she could see a light in the distance. It was so far, still many miles to go, but she continued, marching forward, step by step, her legs tiring, her arms sore from holding the branch high, and her body shivering, cold, as there was no fire here. There was no light, just the branch to guide her. And she continued forward, step by step, going slower and slower. Her lungs grow tired of taking in such cold breath. Her mind grows numb, thinking that maybe this is not worth it. But still, she continues, like a machine at this point, marching step by step. And then before she knew it, as she collapses to the ground, she looks up and sees that great light. That great light from a gargantuan tree, colored white just like the branch she held. Its light was dimming. Its light was dimming, but Cherub began to climb the tree. She climbed it higher and higher until she could see the world in front of her, endless in darkness, save for what light the tree gave off. She found, on a great branch, a piece that had been snipped off. And when she laid the branch next to it, the light vanished from this branch. And the tree, suddenly there was a thump, and then another thump. Cherub perked her head up, listening, wondering where that noise was coming from, but then the tree yet again, thump, 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 and she perked up as the light began to grow brighter and brighter, until finally another tree slowly lit up, not with fire, but with light. And as it grew greater and brighter, the next tree lit up as well. And then the next, and then the next, before she could even think, before her mind could settle, the forest lit up with a beautiful, never-ending light. And then the next, and then the next, and in the distance, she saw far, far away as she stood on that great tree, another light, and then another. A forest in the distance started to light up. What few little trees gripped to life started to glow, and more of them glowed and glowed. And as she lay against the trunk, finally resting her eyes for the first time in days from this months-long journey, she had pushed herself to the brink. But finally, as she looked up into the sky, she saw a single light, just one, out in the distance. A single light. And then, a second, and then a third, and then a fourth, and she saw light beginning to return. And as her eyes finally closed, for the first time in years of her entire existence, she felt it. Warmth. Warmth slowly returning. And as she finally fell asleep, she felt comfortable. There was no cold, there was no dark, there was no end. For life returned to the world, and for that she could sleep at peace. And that is a very short, but I hope entertaining story of Cherub and the Unyielding Flame. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, Lizard, as it was your request.
It was great.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
When you improv like that,
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
make a kid a DM.
Dude, I have DM'd for so long, almost 15 years straight. You have no idea. Oh, I am truly the forever DM, if you will. Hey there, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it if you could like the video and maybe even subscribe if you enjoyed yourself. This whole thing is kind of part of a new project I want to do with the channel where I go throughout VR chat, telling stories and maybe even collecting a few. The world is a bit of a hectic place right now, so I'm hoping maybe by sharing stories and everything, we can all laugh and maybe get a sense of wonder through everything. Stories have kept people entertained for generations, and I just want to share a couple of them and maybe even create a few new ones. If you've enjoyed the video, I'm really glad, and if you have any feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'm always looking to improve because I know I'm not perfect at this. For those of you that want to join and see these stories live, I am going to be getting on VR chat every Friday from 2 p.m. CST to 5 p.m. CST in order to tell stories, collect them. Might go a little longer, maybe a little less, it depends entirely what happens. But in the future, I might also try to stream this. We'll see what happens because I really want to try to work with a larger audience and really just kind of make everybody laugh and have a good time. So, thanks again for watching this vid. I hope you had a wonderful time. Bye-bye.